すべてのエルディア人を安楽死させる。エレン、こんなふざけた計画、俺は到底受け入れられない。
It's generally accepted that Chapter 139 reveals that Eren was not the father of Historia's child. Some say it was a retcon, and that Eren was originally going to be the father, but Izayama switched it out for the farmer. Some say it was wrong to even think this in the first place, and that there was nothing whatsoever that pointed towards it. And others say that the farmer is the father in the manga, but Eren will be in the anime. But the thing is, despite the consensus being that Farmer Kun is the biological father in the end, the manga really doesn't give us the damning confirmation it seems to. And after rejecting both the retcon hypothesis and the idea that the pregnancy subplot wasn't supposed to be a mystery, I've determined that all evidence leads to Eren being the father. So this is the story the royal government were fed. We are told that this farmer has had a background check and he's confirmed to have history with Historia, that he did used to have feelings for her, that he said it himself, that the reason he did menial work was out of guilt. And this guilt must have been a lot because he's had his head down for years. And that despite wanting her to notice him when he was younger, he was no longer trying to get her attention. We can also attribute this to his guilt. This farmer seems like a really convenient guy. We are meant to believe that Historia went up to this farmer who's been working there for years, with likely no interactions between the two during that time, and had sex with him. These drunk MPs who easily write Historia off as classless are our insight to what happened with Historia. And this has led to a lot of confusion and dislike towards Historia. This is despite us now knowing that the military were wrong about details such as when Historia actually became pregnant, proven because Levi was under the impression that she would be giving birth in months. It turned out she went into labor in Chapter 134, set only days after he says this. So it's confirmed that Historia did lie about one aspect. And apparently Historia feigned being prepared to become a Titan too, even though she was Team Eren at that point. This is another detail that led to people claiming there's a retcon. Roeg refers to the farmer as some local she didn't even marry. And unlike with her due date, Historia had no reason to feed them false information here. She really didn't marry the farmer. Back then, at least. And in the panels after, all the way until she goes into labor, she's shown as miserable and detached. She wasn't marrying that man anytime soon. But according to John, who has been in contact with Historia 3 years later, she is now a married woman. So she went from unmarried and pregnant to having given birth, and somewhere in that time she married Farmer Kun. That's great and all, but why did she wait until after the rumbling? Historia spent her time pregnant on a chair outside, looking rather miserable. This shows us the disconnect between her and her supposed lover, as he tries to bring her back inside with him and is concerned that she isn't caring for herself like he thinks she should. It doesn't seem like she gets any joy from his presence. It doesn't seem like she had chosen him to be her life partner to procreate with. And add to that the fact that, again, they aren't married. But the reason why she is so dreary and spends her time outside is because it's because she's made the decision to not live her life with pride. Like Armin, Connie, Jean, and Mikasa in Chapter 124, Historia can't bear the idea of Eren destroying the world for her sake. Ymir's final wish to Historia was for her to live proudly. This is what drove Historia to rejecting the Titan serum and to saving Eren instead of eating him. But in Chapter 130, we find that Eren's actions now go against letting Historia live proudly. She doesn't even think she'll be able to live with herself, but she does stay quiet. She does manage to live with herself, and she even seems happy 3 years after the rumbling. She lied to the royal government, which led to a wild goose chase of deceit and conspiracy. She even helped Eren achieve his plan by becoming pregnant. This kept Zeke alive when he arrived at the island. If you've read that theory about why pride is a major factor in the Alliance and how it is responsible for some of their and Eren's rather contradictory ideas, then you may have thought of this too. Ymir asking Historia to live her life with pride goes against her goal of protecting her. She originally planned to take her to Marley so she could have a better chance of survival, but once it was revealed that Eren could protect Historia, Ymir acknowledged that and basically left her up to him.
But Historia planned to sacrifice herself for the 50 Years plan and was strongly opposed to the rumbling. She still wanted to live a life she was proud of, even if it meant dying early, being used to make royal-blooded children and her descendants being doomed too. Meaning that Eren opposing this and convincing Historia to forego Ymir's request actually meant he succeeded in protecting her like she wanted.
Eren was willing to respect the Alliance's pride, even if it would have led to them dying. He wanted them to live long, happy lives and to do that they need to be proud. But with Historia, he divulged his plan of committing mass genocide over 9 months before he carried it out. He acknowledged that it might be too much to bear and that his only way of mending this was with the founding Titan, which he hadn't even activated yet. He was telling her to spend months with this information and to not do anything about it. Telling her to live a life she's not proud of. Unlike with the Alliance, he chose to share the burden with Historia, even though it'd make her suffer. He chose her, an enemy of humanity, to confide in because she's his savior, and he's been carrying this burden alone. He's been unable to live proudly himself. Apparently that sweet talking worked because the events after this prove she joined him. Historia's way of sharing the burden of Eren's sins with him is, you guessed it, by having a child with him.
私が子供を作るのはどう?
By becoming pregnant, Historia gave in to Eren's rumbling plan and discarded the 50 Years plan. It was him who warned her that the military police would try and feed Zeke to her, and initially she decided against running or fighting. In the end, her strategy for opposing the MPs is to become pregnant, meaning she's responsible for letting Eren's plan to protect her succeed. Which is to say that the baby inside Historia symbolizes her sharing the burden of his sins. But Eren only has 4 years left. There is a good chance he's not coming back after the rumbling too, which is where the farmer comes in. He's driven by guilt and not self-interest. He has a background that would avoid arousing the suspicion of the military and would prioritize her safety. Eren's condition to Historia, wanting a child, is for that child to have a different father in his place. With what we know about the farmer, it certainly seems like he'd agree to this plan. The pregnancy subplot concludes here. Historia sacrificed her pride to bear the burden of Eren's sins, but in doing so, had a child which made her happy again. And even though Eren is gone, she still has a piece of him with her. She marries the farmer after it's clear Eren isn't coming back, and because he has supported her the entire time, even though she was apathetic towards him at one point. He also helped in saving her from being sacrificed. The farmer stays with her and looks after the child in Eren's place. This is symbolized by the fact that he's actually wearing Eren's clothing. Ultimately, Historia is happy, and both her and her daughter were saved from being sacrificed for the 50 Years plan. She's able to live with herself too, even though she thought she wouldn't be able to. But why is any of this even important? Because it makes this scene like 5 times better. And it's odd for Eren to act the same way here in the anime and the manga if he only has a child on the way in one of them. Even though Eren values reproductive freedom regardless, it should at least be somewhat different depending on whether or not he's going to be a dad. It's weird for the farmer to be the biological father in any timeline. But it makes complete sense for him to want to help, considering what we know about him. Basically, if there's an AOE, then Eren needs to be the father in both the anime and the manga, for consistency purposes. Thanks for watching.
無力なままだ。